Good morning, Bulldogs. Welcome to Wednesday. It's Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. And I apologize for the video coming in late again today because I had to redo it. Because I did it outside and the cars were noisy, and then someone decided to start mowing their lawn. And while it's nice that they have a lawn to mow, it's not nice that it makes it too loud for our videos. And my students need to learn things. So I try this again. I was planning on making a new form of videos. I've been telling you that. I'm needing my daughter actually to help me out. So hopefully by our next round, I'll finally get that up. But today's music is by Ramsey Lewis, the piano player, the composer, the radio host of Legends of Jazz from Chicago, Illinois. He's still around. That's a good thing. So happy birthday, Mr. Lewis. He started playing the piano at a young age of 4. He won 3 Grammys, although he was nominated for 4. And he started recording in the 50s, and every decade he's had multiple albums. And he is also a philanthropist. He helps with inner city music programs so that they can learn music as well, especially in his hometown area of Chicago. So that's very admirable. So happy birthday, Mr. Lewis. Let's talk about what happened on this day in history today. So special shout out to Block 7. It's your day today. And to the others watching to fill in your timelines. Remember, when you fill out your timelines, you don't need to write all of this information, right? That's a lot. That's excessive. I would pare it down to, maybe the last 2 bullets or the bullet above the last one. Make sure you know it's from the Russo-Japanese War. By next class, you'll be knowing how to put these timelines together. And my goal today is actually to post something in case you want to get ahead of it. But we'll see. It should be easy for those of you who've been maintaining your timeline. But first, let me tell you a little bit about why I chose this. The Russo-Japanese War directly relates to imperialism, and this battle really relates to our STEM history. So how does this battle relate with imperialism? Well, it's in 1905 when imperialism was still a major thing, and it was between 2 empires who were both trying to expand their empire. So the Russian Empire and the Empire of Japan. Now, they both had goals of obtaining Manchuria and Korea in Asia. Russia wanted these locations to be a warm water port for its navy, so for military purposes, but also for trade. Remember, trade has been a big thing here. Japan is like, no, this is our territory. This is our domain, if you will, and we don't want Russia encroaching on our area. So you have this war that started in 1904 and lasted to 1905, and this is a major naval battle. It was the first naval battle that was fought with these big modern steel ships. You see them in World War I, World War II. You still know what they look like. As the result of the Industrial Revolution, they can make ships like this, and now naval battles are fought with these different types of sea craft. Now, STEM history, this is also an important battle because you have the telegraph and radio here. And this is the first time that it really played a role in any naval battle. It says played a critical role. It's really the first time it played a role really at all. So before, the commanders or the admirals or whoever at sea could not officially surrender or end a war like that. The honchos on land would have to receive information. So there was various ways that could be done, but usually it came to the detriment of the people at sea. Like they might keep dying and ships keep sinking, and maybe that's just how it ends, is that all these ships on one side sink. But now they can radio things in and be like, hey, this is not going so well, or hey, we're doing well, or whatever, or we need more reinforcements. And that could change how the battles, play out, how it ends. So this is a big deal. Now, interestingly enough, think of Russia here. They had to travel about 18,000 miles just to get to this area where they fought in the first place. But their technology was based off of German technology. So it was, German radio technology, German telegraph technology. And the Japanese it was their own. So they had an advantage of being much more familiar and being much more effective with that. So for all you engineering students out there, right, this stuff is important. Now, the New York Times today. So the big news globally is that countries are meeting to try to solve their economic woes to some degree from this coronavirus. So we have Japan and we have the European Union. And you see this word there, austerity. It's a big word. It's used a lot in economic terms about like, these stern measures being taken. People will have to be strict and maybe even suffer to some degree to make these economies effective. And these countries are realizing like we might have to back off of that a little bit because some people are suffering very severely, countries and people, and we may have to, ease certain things that we normally wouldn't in order for things to continue. China is noticing an increase in some of the virus the more that they open. So it is important for us to try to watch what's happening there so we know what to do here because quite a few states in America, as they reopen more and as the virus hasn't hit them too strong at first, like it has over here, they're noticing virus numbers increase there. So, what do we need to do? So, things to pay attention to. So, now the BBC News I'm going to show you features a lot of US domestic stories as well. So, we have their top story also being about the European Union proposing $750 billion to help countries recover from the economy here. We have Twitter now fact checking the president, and he is not happy about that if you read Twitter. We have an unfortunate story right here about a girl in Iran, Romini Ashrafi, who was 14, so basically like many of your ages. And unfortunately, what happened was she basically ran away with her boyfriend, who was age 35. Um, the police got her and she said, please don't return me home. It is not safe for me there. And the awful story is that her father did decapitate her and confessed to it right away in what is known as an honor killing. So there's a lot of protests in Iran and, still a big movement for women needing to be treated fairly and not murdered. Uh, Now we have SpaceX, which we'll be talking to you in a second. But the picture above of me is Mr. George Floyd, who you see that relates to the picture all the way on the left as well, with the woman holding this sign. It says George Floyd's life mattered. Death of U.S. black man in custody sparks clashes. So out in Minneapolis, Mr. Floyd was unfortunately killed as he was being arrested. And there was an officer who had his knee on his neck for several minutes. I think it's like 5 minutes. And he did say he couldn't breathe. And before you know it, he was dead. Now, the mayor of Minneapolis said this is, he had some quotes I don't remember, but saying like this is not a good thing. Those police officers have been fired, but people were protesting because, like, well, A, why does these kinds of stories keep happening, and B, like they want a full investigation. They don't want to just them to be fired and done. They want criminal charges and all sorts of things. So the protests were mostly peaceful for most of yesterday. I was actually impressed seeing that they were actually like sort of social distancing in their protests, lots of chalk drawings and stuff. But unfortunately, what usually happens in most protests is you still get some people who are angry, as you can imagine, that were more violent with the protests. No one died from the protests, but then the police responded with things like tear gas and stuff like that. So way too often we have stories of these sort of racial incidents in our country, and something we still need to be aware of, something we still need to do something to end, right? And so continue to follow that story. So you see in the center, you have this NASA SpaceX launch. So I'm doing a little extra today because this is a really, really, really big deal. If we didn't have so few lessons left, I would have made our lesson just on this today and not finishing up imperialism. But we have two astronauts, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, and they are being launched in a SpaceX rocket. a Falcon 9 rocket, and they are going to go up to the International Space Station. FYI, it's been flying over us the past few weeks, like at night. So if you put updates on your phone, you can go out at night and see the ISS fly over. And you can see it better now with less cars on the road, and you can see the stars and all better. So I urge you to do that. But why is this a big deal? Well, we have not had astronauts go to space from the United States in 9 years, not since the shuttle mission ended in 2011, right? So that's big. Also, it's the first time SpaceX is sending people into space, right? Normally they just send cargo. So it's the private industry sending American astronauts on American soil. Very, very big. Okay, I can't keep saying it enough. So you see the NASA tweet there that says for the first time since 2011. You see various images of them. That's an image of the Falcon 9 rocket being launched or being put upright last night. So you can watch this on TV. You can watch this online. The screenshot to the left is from space.com. You can watch it there. You can watch it on SpaceX. You can watch it online on NASA TV. And I'm sure almost all the big news things will be covering it. So when do you watch? Well, starting around 12:15, you can go on NASA TV and some of these online stations, and they're going to start running coverage of this Demo 2 mission, is what it's being called. Okay, so it's not going to dock until tomorrow at 11:39. So if you watch NASA TV like the whole time, you'll see constant updates of what's going on. You can see them when they arrive at the ISS and the ceremony when they go in. It's going to be pretty cool. The actual launch is going to be after 4 o'clock today. It's 4:15, 4:55. It's sometime after 4. So maybe I'll probably put something on Google Classroom for you guys to comment if you watch it. Maybe I can give you extra credit for your journal responses if you do notice anything. So it's going to be something you're going to want to see today. Now, if for some reason it doesn't happen, the weather conditions are not optimal, it will still happen, I think, in 2 days. I don't know. Stay tuned tomorrow if it does not go off. All right, but for today's assignment. So normally we cover our imperialism literature by reading 2 things. For the sake of time, because we still want to do a World War unit before the year ends, you're going to choose one of their 2. So the first option you could do is to do your assignment on George Orwell's Shooting an Elephant. It's the same George Orwell. If you liked 1984, Animal Farm, maybe you'll want to choose this one. So Shooting an Elephant is a short story. It's autobiographical about his time in Burma. So you can go online and find Shooting an Elephant and read it. I posted a video where I read it. There's no images from my daughter. There's no puppet shows. But we've all been behind our screens too long. So I wanted to give you that option so you can just press play and not look at the screen and just listen while you're, relaxing or doing something else where you can still concentrate. And then after you listen or read it, there's 2 parts. The first part is you want to think, what were the advantages and disadvantages for each group of people? Excuse me. So for the British, what were the advantages of imperialism specific to George Orwell's case? Okay, not in general, but from this story. And then what were the disadvantages of imperialism from this story? Okay, you want to think of at least 3 things. So you might want to do this. If you're listening to it, you can almost fill it in as you listen. Then for the Burmese, how did imperialism help them? How did it hurt them? Okay. And then there's 6 questions. You pick 3. Pick whatever 3 you want and should be about a paragraph response. So, for those of you who really like short stories, if you like elephants, I'm going to warn you, I love elephants, and it's called Shooting an Elephant. So, it's not a good ending. And people die, which is, worse than that even. All right. So now we have A White Man's Burden. So very important poem when it comes to covering the Age of Imperialism. So let me give you some background. The Spanish-American War in the end of the 1800s, the U.S. defeats Spain and we acquire all their colonies. So we became what most historians call a mini empire at that point. So we acquired Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. So Rudyard Kipling, who's also the author of The Jungle Book you may have heard of, wrote a poem. He was British, And it's published in a United States magazine. And it's like, welcome to the club, America. You're now imperialist too. And you're going to do a lot of hard work. And these people are going to take you for granted, but it's the right thing to do. We look at this poem now as showing racist ideas, ethnocentric ideas, but it's important to see like what was the perspective at the time. So for that poem, what you're going to do is take that and make your own poem that also revolves in some ways around the theme of imperialism. Okay, so an example is you can um, you can print it out. You can do this digitally. I think everyone who did it so far did it digitally, where they just like black out certain words. You can write it and do it, because I know we don't all have access to printers right now. So you can do it like this and make it some art in the background. I know I have lots of creative students in here. See, sort of artsy. You can just black out words. Now, some people turned it in yesterday. Their blackout poem was keeping the first stanza intact and then blacking out the rest of the poem. That's not really how this works, okay? You don't want to keep too many words. Like you see in this third one, they have a few phrases that are like 4 words. Do that sparingly. Most of the words you do should be just solo words, all right? So if you do use like a passage, if you will, try to keep that minimal, okay? So what about, that's the first part. The second part is you're going to answer some questions. So it's cut off on the screenshot, but you're answering some questions on the political cartoon. So real quick, what are our political cartoon characteristics? Remember 2S, 3C, HP. So 2S, side, no, I messed it up. 3S, 2C, HP. All right. So 3S, we have size, symbolism, and shading. Okay, C is caption and caricature. HP is humor and personification. So you're going to find 2 of those you see here and explain them. Don't just put like, symbolism, peace, dove. That's not in here. But like why are they symbolizing peace? And right, so explain that. And then there's just one question that you answer in a paragraph. So the first part would be making your blackout poem. The second would be identifying 2 characteristics and 1 question. Now, in case you're having trouble to clearly identifying the poem, the picture, I just want to go over a few things with you guys. So you see a man who is a soldier carrying a person up a hill. There's a rifle on his back, and he has a canteen. The canteen says US, so you know it's a US soldier. You also know it's US because there's flags, US flags here on the ship, and here on top of this building that says schoolhouse. Okay? There are feet on the ground, maybe representing someone who is dead. Also pay attention to this person. This person is supposed to be a Filipino, right? This was about us now imperializing the Philippines. Notice, does it look like a person? Right? When I said there's elements of racism in the poem, there's also elements of racism in the political cartoons. Strong elements of racism. Remember what we learned about the Age of Enlightenment, that everyone's treated equal. Everyone should be treated equal because everyone is fair. Everyone is born equal in nature. Well, if everyone is born equal in nature, how can you justify the age of imperialism? And a tactic they often used was then to make these people seem like they weren't people, right? Comparing them to animals, right? As you see in this portrayal here. So there we have it. So you pick one of the 2, shooting an elephant or white man's burden. You can really do both if you want to, but that would be a lot of work. I want you to try to watch SpaceX today. It will be cool. You can tell your kids about it someday, that you saw the first time that a private industry launched astronauts, and the first time it was a rocket in the United States post the shuttle. It is a SpaceX rocket, right? Not a US rocket, but NASA obviously has to work together. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here to respond to them today. And have a good weekend if you don't watch the videos the rest of the week. We'll be wrapping it up when we get back with our final assessments on the world wars Miss you guys. So proud of the work you've been doing, especially the Memorial Day assignments. That was great. I apologize. This one is so long. The next ones will be much shorter. All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.